you, Stefan. Thank you. We are aware. Okay, fantastic. So welcome everybody on behalf of the coaches of the steering committee, however you want to call us, of the working group on communication. We are here, Natalie Bennett, Stefan Balashkowski, Valentina Versano Dearborn, and Jeannie Yen Hansen. And we are super happy to kick off the first of these cross-pollinating meetings as a follow-up of our kickoff session with a presentation delivered by Julie Aleviso and Anne-Catherine Nees, who were very excited when we were having this cross-pollination session, our very first kickoff. They were like, it would be great if we could do this and that. They will introduce themselves in a minute, but this is exactly like they are kind of embodying the spirit that we want to bring about with this group. Like, how can we really find points of discussion that we can work together? And then from that point, like, how can we really take this forward, like not only make it a very nice meeting and get to know each other better, but also how can we really put these ideas into action from our perspectives as researchers, as practitioners, perhaps even like trying to build up to get projects together. We don't know, the sky's the limit. So without further ado, unless any of my esteemed coaches have something to say, I would like to pass Stefan, Valentina, Natalie, awesome. I would like then to pass the microphone to Julie and Anne-Catherine.
Anne-Catherine, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can start. Thank you very much, Jeannie, for the introduction. We are, I think I can say for us both, we are super happy to kick off this cross-pollination meeting today. Just a little word on my side. I'm Anne-Catherine. I am a research associate at the Leuphana University in Germany and doing my PhD on the topic of how we can use nudging to promote particularly the circular economy. So this is really great where we can start with this topic today. And do you want to introduce yourself, Julie?
Yep. So thank you so much again for this session. It's as Anne-Catherine mentioned, we are very excited. So my name is Panayota Alevisu. My nickname is Julie, so please feel free to call me Julie. And I'm a lecturer at the University of Sheffield. My research focuses on sustainable consumption and production. And my real passion is I'm a collector of packaging and labeling. So I have labels spanning back to the 80s and 90s to date. And I'm looking, especially when Anne-Catherine mentioned nudging, labeling came to mind as one of those ideas. So I'm very happy to be here and happy to start as well.
Great. And yeah, as you've all read, probably we are talking or would like to get you into talking, and there's a discussion about communicating sustainable lifestyles effectively and look at how nudging could be a bridge builder today. Just to give you a quick overview, what we are planning for today, as Jeannie already said, is very ambitious. I will start just giving you a quick introduction on nudging so that we are all at the same, all have the same information and share the same knowledge. And then we would already like to start to get you into talking. So we will start or put on a whiteboard and give you the opportunity to collect some keywords where what comes to your mind when you think about nudging sustainable consumption. We'll have a question there for you. Then we will go ahead and group those different keywords into major themes or try to do so. And based on these themes, put you in breakout sessions so you have more time to discuss your ideas and thoughts on the topics. And then we'll come back all together and wrap up the session today. So that's the plan, the broad outline. And as I've just said, I'll just start with the introduction to nudging. First of all, I've brought a couple of definitions so that we all know what we're talking about when we hear the term. The first one is from the Cambridge Dictionary. So basically speaking, if we start off by looking at the definition that is in the dictionary, nudging is defined as something, or it's defined as to push something or someone gently, especially to push with your elbow, so the middle part of your arm, and to attract the person's attention. And then going a bit further and deeper, the term nudging has really been coined by the two authors, Thaler and Sunstein in 2008. So if we look at publications with the term nudging in them, we can really see a sharp rise from this time onwards. And how Thaler and Sunstein define the term is that we have an intervention. So we're looking at choice interventions based on the choice architecture. And those interventions alter people's behavior in a predictable way without forbidding any options or without significantly changing their economic incentives. And those interventions need to be or remain easy and cheap to avoid. So what is really important here is that we are changing the choice architecture in which a consumer can choose. And what we are trying is we do not forbid any options, so we do not take away any choice alternatives, and we don't give any significant economic incentives. So this is also really important, that there are no large incentives on the economic side, because then it wouldn't be nudging anymore. And the other factor that is really important is that the interventions that we do not desire as an outcome still need to be really easy and cheap to pursue, and then vice versa, the intervention that we desire as an outcome needs to be easy and cheap to avoid for the consumer in this aspect. And if we try to cluster different nudging categories, there's a paper of Müncher, Vetter and Scheuerle from 2016, where they're looking at trying to produce a taxonomy of nudging categories, because there are so many different nudges. What we can see is that there are different clusterings, but we just chose this one, that there are different categories, one being the decision information part, then the decision structure, and the decision assistance. And just to give you some quick examples of these different types of nudges, for example, if we look at the decision information, those are all those things that aim at translating information to make information more visible or provide a social reference point. So the social norm nudge would be part of the decision information. As you can see on the image, to take your litter home, other people do. Providing the social reference point to get the desired behavior or the desired outcome. And then we have the decision structure with the most prominent nudge basically being to change the choice defaults, so altering the choice default option. And I think many of you or all of you also know this one. For example, when you buy online, you have maybe a shipping option pre-selected, as you can see on the image. Or what I'm currently doing in my research is that we are looking how we can use choice defaults to alter behavior in terms of getting consumers to choose a reusable cup instead of a single-use plastic cup. So this is another option how we can use defaults to promote sustainable consumption, as an example. And then lastly, we have the decision assistance, which basically are things like providing reminders to people or facilitating commitment, which could be self or outside commitment by choosing or telling other people that you are trying to lose weight or eat less sweets, for example. This would also facilitate commitment. But as we see in this example, the WWF reminding people to use less paper towels by putting the slogan on the paper towel disposer, save paper, save the planet, for example. So these are just some examples of nudging. I don't know, Julie, you want to add something? Your labels, for example?
So this is brilliant, because we do have these type of categories embedded in the consumer decision-making process as well. So just going further to our discussion, how we can see this as maybe a personal nudge, so individual strategies for nudging, or we can think of policy nudging, or communities or family. So this will take even deeper, I think, our discussion towards the future of how this nudging works from an individual level to a policy level, a community level. I think this is brilliant, and it all feeds in to the decision and information and structure and so on that you mentioned, Anne-Catherine. So if we go to the next slide, then I think that's I don't know if we're going to have breakout rooms if we are large enough as a group, but it would be good to look at nudging into these different aspects, or what do we feel nudging means, and put down some words, keywords, so we can define it in our words, or see areas that we can sort of work more towards. Yeah, so one would meet for me, it will be like what individual strategies consumers are using, people are using to nudge sustainable consumption. And also from a marketing perspective, brands in the market are nudging us all the time with different type of approaches. And then our families, communities, and so on. I don't know how that sounds to everyone. Okay, so
So
I
I'll
think
try.
there's a whiteboard somewhere.
Can you see the whiteboard?
Now I think this is a whiteboard. Okay, I think we can see it
Yeah.
now, but I don't think we have access though. Oh, we have access. So everyone has access to the whiteboard to type the words like what nudging means to you as an individual, as a personal approach to what nudges you to sustain your consumption, to be more sustainable. That may be, for instance, a grocery list that you keep consistent through the weeks, or something, a local shop that you feel is more sustainable option. I think you can access the board. There's that's how I did it anyway. There is a column on the left.
Oh, Jeannie, great.
Yeah, you can find it. Yeah, I think that's, yeah, what nudges, what do you think is, or even, yeah, I think there's also, you can type.
It is a bit funny because I type, but then it disappeared. So I don't know if everybody's having
Okay.
the same problem.
Let me just try.
Yeah, because I'm also using the web base of Zoom, so it's become.
But did you write a form of gamification?
Yeah, I wrote that, but then it disappeared, and now out of the blue it appeared. So I'm like, holy moly, what's going on, Zoom? Why are you doing this to us?
Maybe
And it's on the record as well. So it's,
maybe it needed a bit of time to appear.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I don't know what this line is. So freedom of choice, yes,
Mm.
very important. So yeah, I've also read that it's not always effective, and especially policy nudging and market nudging, it may create different reactions for consumers. Oh, can delete it. So
So I'll just add yours, Valentina. Oh no, Natalie, it was you. Yeah.
mobile apps.
You know, 2.5 years in and out, and we are still all trying to figure out our way around. Hold on.
Helping to, yeah, labeling and information. Alternatives, yeah.
Sorry, Stefan, I just erased your purple drawing.
Natalie, you see your, there you go. I was just offering to type your stuff onto the board.
I think that's the most popular example.
Which one?
The flies in the toilet. I think it was Amsterdam at the airport.
Yeah, Amsterdam airport. But you know what? It's so funny because it's also one of the key examples of gamification as well. And that's why there are so many questions sometimes like, okay, what's the fine line between the two of them? But yeah. I think I don't know, in your experience, do you think that the positioning of products in supermarket aisles is also one of those prime examples of nudging, right? That it's just more about bringing your attention to the eye level and like, hey, special offer here, ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. I think so. And it's a lot of retailers have been accused for promoting impulse buying, and they are trying to turn around that approach in terms of consumption. But also it's about alternative options, and it's also messages that they can include within the retail space in terms of reusing some products or their packaging. There are a lot of messages on the brands itself, their packaging, that are not visible to the consumer who goes in a supermarket in and out and wants just to shop and not deal with a lot of information. But there's a lot of opportunities to support a more sustainable. I think retailers are not doing, they can do much more to support more. Yeah.
Because I think one of the prime examples is actually the opposite direction when they just put you like other consumers who got what you wanted. I think we're talking about two different types of retail, right? Because nudging also works both ways. And if you are, for example, shopping online, they always put you like other consumers also bought with this, and that. And they always put you the bundle like, hey, it would be nicer that if instead of paying, I don't know, €8 for this, you pay 30 because there are these other 3 items that other consumers find as complementary, right? So it goes both ways. Like, how can these be like put forward? But again, it's not the same as if you go to a store as such as if you have the algorithms online, right? So
definitely, I think there's much more scope to do much in terms of sustainable consumption. It's not only selling 3 for 2 and 2 for 1, which in the UK, that's my experience. When I first came in Sheffield, I remember 2 for 1 or 3 for 2. I don't see it as much anymore in big FMCG retailers, fast moving consumer good retailers. So I think there are some, some movement. There is some movement in reducing overconsumption, but still, that's still very, very early in its infancy, rather than trying to actively promote sustainable choices in consumption. So is anyone from Sweden or Norway or sorry, there are hands. I'm
Valentina and Philip. Yeah.
You're first, Valentina.
On the last comment of yours, Julie, I was wondering what your opinion is on using legislation to help this trend of positive or like more sustainably sustainable use or directed nudging. For example, say, if you all supermarkets have the obligation to position the more sustainable and healthier products on aisle level by 2020. It doesn't mean that because in that case, it doesn't mean, I read that some people said it's important to have free choice. You still have a free choice, but it would kind of use nudging as a tool to reinforce it through legislation. What do you think about that?
I think that's a tough one. So in consumption literature, we know consumers don't like to be patronized or don't like to be pressured in choices. So we see now a lot of movement and disagreement in terms of how to deal with veganism, for instance, in marketing and in the markets. In terms of aisles and retailers, that's why I asked before if there's anyone from Sweden or Norway. They would know that in retailers now, you label the shelves So there's no option. And that's interesting for me, but I haven't been there for past 10 years. So so everywhere you look, there's gonna be a label on the aisle that's eco-friendly. It has two eco labels, the Nordics one or the EU eco label. So what does that mean? Does it mean this is a sustainable choice? And if so, the entire retailer is a sustainable option. So there are elements that are trying to move towards that way, towards regulating consumption and nudging. But then when it becomes a norm, where do companies stand and what's the next step? So do we stop with a label? So everything now in a Swedish supermarket may be labeled on the shelves. And I'm just, I have to say, it's been a few years, I haven't been there. So where does that bring us? Did we solve the problem of nudging and of sustainable consumption by having an eco label, for instance? So I'm not sure if I answered your question, Valentina. It's a tough one. Regulation and interfering, like the sugar tax, for instance, in the UK, or plastic bag, the part that we have to pay 30p for a plastic bag. That's one intervention that may or may not work. So we're still collecting data around that. And I don't know if anyone else wants to chip in.
So I wanted to say two interventions back that I don't see a reduce in advertisement, 3 for the price of 2, etc. I see it all around me, and just this morning I read that at least in the Netherlands, that about 40% of all the sales in supermarkets are because of special occasional price reductions. So the supermarkets actually work in the opposite direction and incentivize us to buy more because of these reductions on prices. Yeah, let me leave it at here. I had another point that will come back to me in a moment.
I believe, Birgit, you were next. You wanted to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to the discussion that we are mostly discussing how can we get people to buy the more sustainable alternative by nudging. But I think it's really more important, in my opinion, to find ways that people really consume less. So don't buy anything would be the best option. But there is nearly no discussion around this kind of thing because of nobody earns anything if people don't buy something. But I think nudging could be also a way there, but there is very little discussion about this because, you know, what means sustainable consumption? In the first place is to consume less. Yeah, that's the first thing we have to think about. And if I go to the supermarket, I'm not sustainable at all. Doesn't matter what I'm buying there. So I'm going there, and for example, I see some products with eco labels. Yeah, that's nice, but it's far away from sustainable consumption in total. So yeah, there can be some kind of nudging when you're bad to be a little less bad, but yeah, that's not the overall goal, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I wrote also down that nudging, I see it form as a weak sustainable consumption and not a strong sustainable consumption. And but the issue is well, I also wrote down somewhere that advertisement is nudging us all the time. So one question is, what can we do against this dominant advertising that subjects us to all these unsustainable choices all the time? So yeah, I don't see that nudging brings us maybe 5% closer to where we want to be, and that we really need more structural solutions, starting with, for instance, the plastic bag, right? As soon as you ask people to pay for it, they bring their own plastic bag, even if it is 10 cents or so. It's really helpful. It's not nudging, it is an economic incentive. And then regulation also helps. You know, regulation phased out incandescent light bulbs very effectively. And I can go on, but the real issue is that the big corporations or the big financial markets have to make a profit because of the interest rate. So they have to find whatever they can find to increase consumption. So they will always find new things to make us consume more. Otherwise, the whole economy will collapse. And so the conundrum basically is how to, that's the degrowth question, right? How do you reduce the financial and big business transaction up to a level that is not only sustainable, but it is also economically viable. Sorry for my I went a little bit out of bounds, but I cannot help myself.
That's amazing. So I'm trying to find my hands. Oh, there it is. Can I just add something to that brilliant outline of the challenges? So we're talking also about a lot of different industries. So for me, some industries are making some efforts, very, very tiny efforts, like the fashion industry. I was walking at the Student Union yesterday, and I saw a shop, a secondhand shop, with no one there, and just messages of please be responsible and then swap your clothes. So there's the potential there to do more in terms of being more sustainable and consuming less. So students in a massive shop, they were encouraged to take whatever they felt necessary and leave their own old clothes. So that's a nice initiative from a university, for instance. And then it's more difficult to do it in a different scale in a fast-moving consumer good industry. As Philip also mentioned, the offers are there for us. But yeah, it's also the context and the industry play a massive role in thinking about consumption. So yeah.
So maybe in summary, I was
May I-
wondering, I wrote that I would differentiate exactly what you just said, Julie, between nudging
Yeah.
as a tool in the market, in the free market, basically, or in market sales, and then nudging in the public, in public spaces like the university, and then it becomes an educational tool, a bit like the example that we saw before with the national park sign that encourages us to bring home our trash. I think it was that example, but kind of like this, or other people bring back their trash, please do as well, or something like that. Because yeah, this is maybe the
Definitely, yes. So it's a lot of actions also as individuals. So for me, a very important aspect is to look at the home level and the house level and the family level in terms of nudging and education. And then also schools, and then going to the public sphere, and especially marketing is another area. It's a very well, it's a whole different discussion there. But I agree with you, like looking at these two different things of public nudging and more of individual nudging.
Maybe I want to add to Philip. I think it's a form of weak sustainable consumption, but it's like weak sustainable consumption is not an upside to strong sustainable consumption. So we need strong sustainable consumption, but weak sustainable consumption can complement it, can help in the framework. But of course, on the first hand, we need structural changes to promote sufficiency, to promote less consumption, and then nudging can help to gear what is consumed towards a more sustainable level, more sustainable alternatives. But it must be integrated into a total framework of sustainable consumption, of strong sustainable consumption.
I suddenly remember my earlier question that was, do we know of any research that has investigated how effective nudging is in various situations? Because I don't know.
There is, if I can, there is a meta-analysis looking at different behavioral outcomes, and I am actually currently doing another meta-analysis looking at how we can use different types of nudging and how effective it is in terms of sustainable consumption behaviors in particular. So I'll keep you posted on that one.
But how do you measure it? I mean, how do you get the baseline and how do you measure differences? You say you measure behavior, but is it items that are being bought? Or I think it's a very difficult methodological question here.
If I may, I think thinking here, the question is also about the wording that you are using, because for example, if you say nudging examples that applies nudging strategies in consumption, let's say in the household, and there is a lot that is happening for in the area of energy consumption. Some may call it nudges, some may call it gamification, you know, like there are all these strategies in which you can see your consumption and compare with your neighbors or see how benefits. I mean, like you have these little elements that are kind of nudging you to change how you're consuming your energy at home. And these are quantified in terms of like how much is the household energy is the household consuming per month, for example, or how much are they in the buildings and the neighborhoods and so on. So there are several studies, but again, I think it depends a lot on the type of wording that you use for framing your question, because I think that energy in the one hand is the one example that you find easier to measure because you can see kilowatt hour and whatnot. But for there is also I'm trying to remember, that is supermarket consumption as well, like how many items do you bring? The material footprint is also, it's a quite broad measure. But then again, and I am together with Stefan on this one, most of the research that shows quantifiable examples of nudges or like these kind of strategies to really help changing the setting or changing the default setting, they tend to go mainly on the side of weak arguments. Weak sustainable consumption is like, hey, you managed to reduce X amount of CO2, or hey, it's like really keeping the focus on all the environmental aspects, I guess, because it's also the easier one to explain and the easy one to quantify in a way. But I also agree that there is still a huge gray area that is like, okay, how might we be able to introduce indicators of social aspects, like stronger narratives of sustainable consumption that can happen through nudging. So it's a bit tricky. I think there was also discussion once in this Nutri-Score. I don't know, those based in Germany, like there was a big discussion about what exactly does a Nutri-Score mean, and if it's actually nudging people to buy healthier products, or if they perceive that because they have an A, normally the organic products, they are healthier. So by de facto, they can justify a higher price tag, and people are likely to find it, let's say, oh, it's better for my health, so they don't mind the cents different kind of thing. There was a documentary on TV once, but I think that could also be an example of this kind of subtle nudging that is like, hey, you have the rainbow, red is bad. You don't want to have an F. You want to eat an A because it's healthier for you. I don't know if this is going in the direction of the question that you were posing, Philip.
Maybe one adding idea. Maybe there's two effects of nudging. The one is the direct effect. You see this Nutri-Score label, and then you hopefully decide for a more healthy option. But on the other hand, the whole progress of bringing this Nutri-Score into market causes a big discussion in the society about healthy diet, and is the Nutri-Score a good indicator for what is healthy? So maybe it has some educational aspect beyond measurable effects directly, more on the indirect side. But you can't measure this. I think it's hard to quantify. But maybe there is an additional layer of effect.
Yeah, but going back to your question, Philip, I completely agree, because the studies that we are currently looking at and they all measure consumer behavior, and what they define as sustainable consumption is buying better but not less. And that's exactly the problem. But what we're looking at is, well, you choose the organic apple instead the usual one. But that's, I mean, for food is a bit different because we all need to eat. But on other products, it's the same thing. You choose the I don't know, more organic clothing, but you still buy new clothes instead of buying used ones, and that's a big problem. And I think that's one point that is really important that we're talking about it, because from this input and those ideas, we can actually try and start looking at how do we actually measure, or can we can use nudging to promote sufficiency instead of weak sustainable consumption. And I think we really need studies on these aspects, and from as far as I know, there are really little ones looking actually at strong sustainable consumption so far, and what kind of nudges worked, to foster degrowth. And then the same thing with the Nutri-Score, which I think is quite funny, because apparently, from my viewpoint, most people don't actually know how the Nutri-Score works. Because what you said, buying an A product, you feel like you're doing a good thing, but you're comparing a pizza with a different pizza. So a pizza is still not healthy only because it has an A on it. So yeah, this is another aspect.
Yeah, exactly, Julie. But this is one of the examples of how nudging can just like really play in your mind in a way that you believe and you buy this narrative that you're doing something better for yourself without even knowing what that means. So I think, Julie, in your experience also with labels, this is always this like, okay, you have all the badges as a Girl Scout, but in the end of the day, what does that mean? And it's like the consumer question is like, until what point nudging can help, for example, for consumers to be more curious about what all these labels stand for.
Yeah.
Or like, how can we just like really nudge these curiosities? Like, okay, is this something that will really make me consume better? Or like, I mean, like nudging, as every other discipline that deals with behavior, has two sides of the story, right? What are the impacts that we expect to get, and the unintended impacts as well? And I think that if I recall the agenda of what we were going to discuss today, you also wanted to bring forward on this, right? I'm sorry, just that I'm very mindful of the time, and I think the conversation is giving a lot more. So if you would like to continue with your agenda, I think the conversation has been really fruitful and has given us a lot of discussion points to take forward. But please, Julie and Katrine.
Yes, what we had in mind was to group and then have breakout rooms, but we didn't need that because I think we had a wonderful discussion all together. So I think someone was grouping. Was it you, Anne-Catherine?
Yeah,
was it you?
I was trying to group.
Okay, good. So it's good because I see technology somewhere, mobile apps, gamification, and then information. So I think a lot of our discussion today was based on prompting action from shops and from retailers and brands, which is a major issue of how can we make that aspect of communication more sustainable. And then we have type 1, type 2 thinking, a lot of individual decision making there, Anne-Catherine, you've put. Okay, and then we have boundaries. So the challenges, access could be one of them, like access to choices or knowledge to how to access different choices. And then labeling and information, how that affects, and just looking at the nudging literature or choice architecture literature, it's very difficult to agree that labeling will be the way forward. But for me, it seems from my research as the last touching point. If we expect labeling to solve the market, I think that's too late, because everything that happens before that or after that, so how we use products, how we recycle products, how we reuse them, that would be very important in terms of that area of research. And the flies in the toilet, yeah. And then regulation. I think regulation is one other area Anne-Catherine, you've managed to group there, and how much of regulation and regulated actions from the market for consumers, for the public, are effective in terms of sustainable consumption. And then, am I missing something? Consumer behavior as well. So there was a lot of reluctance, for instance, from what I remember, it's not my research area, with plastic bags in the UK, in Sheffield. So that would be something like pushing back if that takes the form of regulation. I think that's the group of statements there. Anything else? I think we've covered
Yeah, I think
the
so.
topics.
So I've tried to put it somewhere in the middle,
Yeah.
Julie. Just
I
can't make
appreciate
it
it.
larger.
Yeah, thank you for doing all this. Yeah, I think that as we were mentioning earlier, I mean, Julie and Katrine, would you like to, I think part of the preparation was for this session was like, okay, how can we take this forward?
Mhm.
We had this great discussion, and I think it got quite deep considering we had quite a short amount of time. So the question that lingers in the air is like, what next? So we open now this discussion. A lot of us have been working on these topics for a long time. So how can we really start connecting the dots between our work? Like Birgit, you were mentioning that you've been studying certain things like of aspects of nudging for quite some time. So how can these expertise that you have be shared with the rest of the group so we can really start creating a lot of these connections and even take them forward? Maybe there are other forms of collaboration. As we said, the
Mhm.
working group is about networking, it's about cross-pollinating, and it's really about bringing our interest on how are we communicating sustainable consumption, but not only for the sake of communicating it and saying like, hey, it's much more than just reducing your CO2, but like really making something happen. Maybe we are a bit naive and it's not going to happen anytime soon, but it has to be started at some point, right? Or has to keep going somehow. So this is also an invitation for all of you to keep thinking, like those of you that are joining on live now, or those that will be watching the recording later, to keep thinking about how all these discussion points from today connect with your own research. And maybe, I mean, we will even offer a Google Doc, I guess. And Katrine, I don't know how are you planning to put the outcomes of this session forward?
So we thought of after grouping all the themes and discussing to write some sort of a blog kind of thing where we bring the key themes. And I think there's a lot of opportunities for the group as well. For instance, we talked about retailers. So we can have that discussion with practitioners, see what's happening there, or get other like more stakeholders involved, but also our own research. But I think that's what we discussed with Anne-Katrine, and that's what I emailed you about, taking this forward as different themes of discussion.
And the collaboration, let's not forget that, Philip, I don't know if I'm allowed to disclose this, that there is also like opportunities to work together in perhaps book projects or potential other projects that we can contribute as, you know, as a working group. I think two of the top research let's say papers that are out there related to sustainable consumption communication stemmed from the efforts of this group. So we can really keep it going and just like really bring the next step, like, okay, maybe we can take this nudging angle already. There were a lot of hot questions happening from here, like happening in here that we can take from all our expertise. I see someone is typing something in the chat. Yeah, so there is this question that maybe you would like to discuss, not now, but in our next session, or to keep on in this online document, that is, how can these scientific insights or collected insight then inform practice? And for example, how can we bring nudging to the community or educational practice? You know, so it's like from all this research that we've been doing, how can we just like really bridge this link, that create this bridge with the practice? Like, okay, we see it in practice the whole time and we say like, oh, it's a great marketing stunt, or it's like a great, I don't know, advertising campaign. Is like, is it? Okay, so what can we learn from there? And in a way, like maybe they learned from us and they just took it, like, you know, who is they? Philip,
Sorry,
I
I
see
have to leave. Sorry, there is somebody ringing the bell here.
No, it's okay, Philip. We still have 10 minutes to go, and we would really like to use this time to wrap, not only to thank Yuli and Anne-Catherine, because I guess you guys really were the very first ones to put yourselves forward as members of the new group and say like, hey, we want to discuss this. I would like to hear you have any closing thoughts that you would like to share as well at this point.
Anne-Catherine?
Yeah, as you just said, Jeannie, I would be super happy what Philip and Stefan and all of us basically mentioned. If we actually, as a working group, a communication group, would start looking at how we can actually use nudging to promote strong sustainable consumption, how to nudge people to buy less. And I think this is something that probably has to start at the educational or policy basis, because I don't see it as in retailers, for example. So I would be super interested if, to start working on these kind of aspects as a group.
Yeah, I would agree. It's some kind of research gap, because it's always great in the weak sustainable green consumption sphere, and maybe there is potential, but we have to look at it and discuss it and see what we can find as a group, how we can use nudging for strong sustainable consumption.
Thank you, Stefan, because on this line, I would also like to invite other members, like other participants to this discussion, to speak up. What do you think about today's discussion? What would be the messages that you take away, and how would you like to see these contributing to your daily practice or your research? We see a couple of people that join us slightly later, so it would be fantastic to also hear a little bit from you, or those who were here from the very start. What are your main takeaways from this discussion right now? I mean, it doesn't need to be super elaborated. Anyone?
I'm thinking from the capacity that I work in at University of Sunderland. I've only joined 6 months ago, and I'm not affiliated with any faculty. I'm working within the space of entrepreneurial development, but I'm coming in there with this lens of how do we regenerate and become more sustainable. And a lot of feedback that I've got from different people in different roles is actually there is a lot of will to practice sustainable development, either through the curriculum or the whole vast of supply chains that run through a university. So I'm actually now thinking one challenge that's been surfaced amongst the many, when you're sort of starting from a will and an intention, and you need to figure out the whole strategy and what's your starting point, is how do we bring the people on board who aren't with that will yet? And so how could nudging be used to encourage them into sharing that same motivation and finding their own lens to contribute to that, rather than maybe potentially pushing against it? But that's just a first thought that came up in this moment. So yeah, I'm simmering, but I think but it has really interesting potential.
Thank you, Natalie, because this is exactly the kind of questions. Like, what are your first thoughts after spending the last 40-something minutes discussing all these? I mean, either you are an expert on the field and you found something new, or you're like yourself, you are quite new to this kind of discussion and start already connecting like for top of your mind. So yeah, we welcome all these kind of reflections. I mean, Anne-Catherine and Julie did an amazing job just really opening this discussion. And yeah, we still have like a couple of minutes to hear from other participants. That would be lovely. You don't need to open your camera if you don't want to. That's totally okay, because we know we're on the record. That yeah, and also for those who are online, you know, our communication channel. Here comes the commercial break. The WGCoCo Connected email address is always open. So if any of you would also like to share some thoughts after listening to this presentation, please share it with us. We check the email regularly, and we are collecting input as well for the second quarterly meeting. So those that are online right now, if you have any thoughts, please raise your hand. For those that are offline and watching this video, please also stay connected. Share your thoughts with us. We'll send a reminder anyway. And I think Anne-Catherine will circulate this living document. Let's see what shape it takes. Could be a blog, could be a Google Doc, whatever you guys will choose, the format that you think it's best to collect these insights. And yeah, what is important now is just to really keep the conversation going and integrating it with our daily practice, right? Because this is just a moment that we take out of our other activities to connect, get some extra connections, and then just go back, but different than where we started. I'm getting too poetic, it's Friday, sorry. So with that, if there are no comments right now, I would like to remind you that we will have a second meeting this year, quarterly meeting, date still to be defined, but the slots are open. Like if any of you as members of the working group would like to put forward another topic that you would like to present, like Anne-Catherine and Julie did today, that they really opened this discussion, please don't be shy, let us know. We are organizing these sessions according to the outcomes of this kickoff meeting back in October 2023. Looks like it was a lifetime ago. So we are like really trying to include all your voices there. So if you have any suggestion you would like to host the next discussion, please let us know and we'll be happy to include it. And at some point in the coming weeks/months, we'll inform you about when the next meeting is going to take place. And we are looking forward to seeing you that are here today and those that are joining us online as well. So last announcements, I think we had a couple of announcements. One is important for the community. You may all be aware, those that are part of the SCORI community, that there is this conference organized by SCORI Europe happening in Lund next year. The call for ideas is still open. So it is the SCORI Europe Mistra 1.5 lifestyle degree project, just like really getting together, and they are organizing this quite massive event. So if you are interested, please look it up. You can receive the information in the SCORI newsletter, our website, SCORI Europe, SCORI Global. And just be there. It would be great to see you. And then the other one is about there are a lot of opportunities with Future Earth as well. I think if you are part of the Future Earth community, you may have received already all this list of potential to join some of the IPC discussions and so on. If you have questions, please, we redistribute these messages as well through our network. So if you have any questions, please reach out to the Future Earth as well. It's a lot going on, so a lot of opportunities to keep networking. Catherine, this in New York City area, and she wants to be included. Of course, Catherine, like you have your email, we have your email address, please. It is great that you're joining us and that you're speaking up. Please don't be a stranger. And we're very thankful that you like the meeting. Yes, thank you, Stefan. So you signed up to this session. So of course, the outcomes of this meeting will be shared to all of you that signed up. We have your emails, I guess. The sign up form included it. And yes, I wouldn't like to keep you here any longer. So if you have anything else that you would like to add, please do it now. Otherwise, I would like to close the first quarterly meeting of 2024. Thank again our wonderful host, Julie and Anne-Catherine, and to all of you for being here, for your great contribution. We're looking forward to seeing you in 3 months. So, Val, you want to say something?
Great. I'm trying.
No, it's just because I saw you talking. So
no, I was just no. I think one comment that I wanted to make on Catherine's comment about sharing. She said the sharing community could be an interesting place to use this as use nudging as an educational tool. And as my background is also more like community work and work with youth and multipliers like educators, I was also wondering the same thing. But so I will definitely appreciate picking up the thread afterwards, maybe also with the two presenters today, and see how we can bridge also from their theoretical insights to practice, and how we can maybe with a guideline or some information use the most impactful, scientifically proven impactful tools in the public arena to make a difference. I would be interested on that. Yeah.
fantastic. So
having said that, thank you so much also from my side. It was very stimulating, and thank you, Ginny, for doing the whole moderation throughout our today's event.
Thank you for having us, and we're looking forward to taking this further and maybe writing something up with everyone if this is something that we can have as a group.
Oh, that we can, we totally can. It's just
Okay.
more about making it happen. So thanks for taking the lead on this.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Fantastic.
you so much, Julie and Anne-Kathrin.
Thank you from my side too.
So with that, we wish you all a very, very nice weekend, very happy spring, and we see each other in, no, but technically speaking, it's still winter, right? But anyway, you know what I mean. We'll see each other in the next meeting. So take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you
Can
so
just
much.
stop the recording
Bye.
then.
Bye.